you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want you to do today. We want you to be on fire for my guest. I will be speaking with Deborah Harris today about her book, Under the Shadow of God's Wing. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Deborah. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Thank you, Dr. Angela Chester.
I am so glad that you are here. Now, as is tradition, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few folks out there that may not be familiar with who you are. So first question to you is, what makes you you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
One thing I like about me is that the fact that I like to listen to people, and through conversation and listening to people, you get to learn a lot of things about life. You begin to get into understanding how they're feeling. And so when I began to write my book, I was beginning to understand the emotions of the people that I came in contact in my life, and knowing how to put it down on paper.
And have you always wanted to be an author, or did you find that life presented you with this opportunity?
No, life did not offer me this opportunity. I had other things in mind, such as to be a ballerina. I wanted to be an astronaut, all of these other things. But I had found out through the years now that this was my destiny, to become a writer.
Now, the title of your book, Under the Shadow of God's Wing, interesting title. How did you come about? Did it come to you first? Did it develop out of your writings? How did you come up with that title?
Well, I was reading the Bible, and the 91st Psalm sparked in my spirit, and I wanted to I really liked the Psalm, and I adopted that into my title of my book, about being under the shadow of God's wings. So that's how that title came about. And a lot of things that
I like it. I like it. Now, when it comes to the ideal reader, many authors have a particular person in their mind's eye. I've explained many times I'd love to give gifts for a high school graduation, and books are one of them. With that being said, is your book appropriate for someone as young as high school, or would it be more appropriate maybe someone college age or older?
Well, just today, I talked to one of my neighbors. I had given her a copy of my book, and she's a teacher, high school teacher, and she says that the book is she's using the book and is inspiring a lot of their students to read it. So that made me to know that yes, I want it for the world, to make it so that everybody can read it.
All right, so then it would be even appropriate for someone in middle school. That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for that clarification. Now, when reading your book, many authors will construct it in a way where you should read it from cover to cover, simply meaning page after page. Others will put it in a way where we should complete a chapter or a section before moving on to the next. Is there a best way for us to read your book in order to utilize the information that you've presented to us?
I would prefer that everyone would start with one of the main poem that I really enjoy to lead off my readers is When the Eagle Flies. That's one of the poems that I would think that they should start off with, and then read the rest of the book.
Now, I'm so glad that you gave them a starting point. That is awesome, especially for the person who says, I don't know where to begin. Now, for many people, when they choose to write, be it that it's personally or professionally, there's something that has inspired them, something that has kind of nudged them to take pen to paper. With that being said, do you have a particular inspiration or a particular nudge that really made you determine now is the time to really get this into a book?
You know what? I really didn't have any nudge. It just happened natural. I just love to write, uh, writing letters to my family, and it turned out to become where that it came like in a poem form, and that's how it began. And like any time when I would get depressed about something, I would go and read one of the poems, and it would inspire me and lift me up.
Now, I find that people who share their inspiration or their insight, their knowledge in the form of poetry, that it is really beautiful to see the personality of the author. I'm not saying that other authors aren't creative, because yes, they absolutely can be, but it seems like poetry is such an intimate prose that you really seem as though you're sitting down with that author and sharing a moment in time with them. So I love that. Now, for someone out there, they may be saying, well, wow, the title of the book is Under the Shadow of God's Wings. Now, I am predominantly on Christian radio, but there are a few stations out there that it is not a Christian station. With that being said, they may be asking, do I need to be a Christian in order to read your book and to understand what's going on?
No, because some of the poems that I had deal with natural life. Like I have one that deals with baseball. I had one dealing with being in a different types of sports where I could so they could understand it. So it's not basically all just for Christian. If they would read it, they would understand. Okay, she's telling me something about baseball. Just giving them another outlook on life, about how life can be, even in the sports world.
Now, for many folks that come on the show, they have discovered God or become acquainted with God at various times of their lives. Some people were raised in the church, so God is all they've ever known. Others were not raised in a religious household, and they found God as an adult. And many others fall somewhere in between. When it comes to your story of your journey of faith, how would you say you began your journey with God?
I began my journey with God for being brought up rejected by my family. And so a lot of times I would go to talk to them. They would tell me to be quiet. They didn't want to be bothered with me. So I developed a little thing in my mind of talking to myself, not knowing at the time I was talking to the Lord. And he would give me little poems and things to write down, that would comfort me.
I love asking those little behind the scenes questions, I guess, if you will, because I think it really helps people understand how God spends time with us and communicates with us. And boy, if we really sit down and think about it, God communicates with us where we are when we need to hear him most. Sometimes it's a quiet voice, sometimes it's a loud booming voice, but I love that God is always willing to give us his attention if we could just quiet ourselves enough to hear that. I love it. Now, you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and I want to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit more. Life experiences. Have any life experiences given you inspiration for the book? You were saying that one is about baseball, it's about sport. And sport, I think, is something that many people are involved in, especially when we're young people in school. We're involved in something something extracurricular. But did you include any other life experiences in the book?
Yeah, I included the time when dealing with people having controversy with parents, young people having troubles with communicating with their parents, and teaching them how to humble themselves and show love and respect. So it deals with a lot over a line of knowing how to show respect in reference to their parents.
Oh, that's a very good topic. I find that many times on radio, on social media, on the various programming, we hear a lot about people feeling as though they have been disrespected in one way, shape, or another. Why do you think that, and this is just your own personal expression, not necessarily that you address it in the book, but why do you think that we need to explain respect to people or explain that dynamic of being a particular way with our fellow human beings?
Because whatever you give out, it always comes back to you. You can't just go around disrespecting people and expect for life to go on like peaches and cream. One thing my dad would always tell me when I was coming up, he said, one thing I can tell you about you, you always listen. You always listen. That's what he would always pat me on my back or pat me on my head and say. You're a good girl. You always would take heed to what I say.
Oh no, I like that. I really like that. I remember I was at work one day and one of the VPs gave someone in the accounting's department a compliment. She wasn't sure how she felt about it, but later on, upon discussion, I explained that I thought that he was trying to be complimentary to her because he said, "I love that you're teachable. That no matter what we tell you, if you don't know something, you're willing to listen, you take in the information, you correct what you did wrong, and we don't have that issue again." And I thought that was really awesome because not everyone is like that. So I totally and completely understand what your dad was trying to say. And it's like we do need to learn how to listen. We do need to learn to be teachable because we all have that moment where we can't be the teacher, we have to be the student. So I love that. I love that. I tell you, sometimes our parents give us great nuggets of wisdom along the way. Thank you to all those parents that are giving those nuggets of wisdom. I love it. I love it. Well, Miss Deborah, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Well, the title of my book is Under the Shadow of God's Wing. And you can get a copy from Amazon or where books are sold. And to stay in contact with me, I can give you my email address, which is Leah Maya, LeaMiah, @yahoo.com.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. My guest today is Deborah Harris, and we're talking about her book, Under the Shadow of God's Wing. I like that title. Now, Deborah, my next question for you is how you have been affected by your having written this book. Now, we understand that, of course, with COVID and all of that, unfortunately, we have not been able to get out and about. And I want to, ask you a little bit about that later on. But how has your life been affected by having written such a powerful book of poetry?
I can't even begin to tell you. This morning when I woke up, I saw the Lord standing there looking at me. I was like, wow, I could not, like you said, being under the shadow of God's wing. It has been an ongoing experience getting me to this place where that I am under his protection now. And that I was just blown away when I woke up this morning and saw him standing in my bedroom, looking at me. So, and I was just so happy that I, was able to get on your show this evening to let me know that I am now under the shadow of God's wings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love how things always work out in God's perfect timing, right? We may try to do something, or we may think that we're supposed to do something, and many times we see the pauses, the stops, the things happen a particular way, and we don't always understand why. And then when it actually does happen, we see the beauty of it all, and that all that God has revealed to us. So I love it, and I'm so glad that you were able to share that. Which leads me to another question, and that is, for many people, they will say that they are a religious person. Others will say that they are a spiritual person. But many times when we talk to especially to our younger people, they kind of use the two words interchangeably, meaning that they have a relationship with God. Have you found that there is a difference between a religious person or a spiritual person when it comes to how they will understand your book, or how they understand their relationship with God?
Well, only thing that I can say, I've been on both sides of the fence. Religious people. I've been a religious person. I've been a spiritual person, and now I'm into the part where I'm now in relationship. It's like we are talking to each other. We're learning. The audience is learning about me. This is what I do every day to try to get to know more about God. So I'm in the relational part now of my journey with the Lord.
I find that as I too mature, not only in my physical age, but in my spiritual age with God, that the label that you put on it is sometimes for someone else's sake, not necessarily for mine, in that I know exactly who I am in God, and I know what God has done for me. And if one or the other is more comfortable for that person, then so be it. But to understand that I am a child of God, and that's the label that I like the most. So yeah, I definitely understand what you are saying there. Now, I want to kind of shift gears just a little bit and ask you about some process questions about how you did the book, how you made everything fall into place. So I want to start kind of on a good note, and that is, when you held the very first copy of Under the Shadow of God's Wings, when you held that copy in your hands, how did you feel in that moment?
Words can't even express how I felt because of the years of rejection from my parents. First of all, they told me that I didn't have the ability to read. When I was coming up, they said that you'll never be able to read correctly or understand. You wouldn't have any comprehension of anything. And here I am, the age that I am, 72, and I have a book. Unfortunately, parents are not here to see it, but even my relatives, they were even shocked. So you know how I was. I was in cloud. I went up cloud 9 or cloud 10.
Because what is for you is for you. It does not matter what anyone else says. If God has a plan for your life, it shall be done. I love it. I love it. You know, when you were saying that, it just made me think about how when we read in the creation story, when God does what he does on every particular day, when he is done, he says, and it was good, right? So I love how when you were saying that in my mind's eye, God had a different plan, that it didn't matter what anyone else said. You were going to do this book, and you know what? It was going to be good. So I love it. I love it. I have heard so many people say something so similar. And thank you so much for sharing that, Miss Deborah. As a counselor, I have people that come in and say, people are down on me and they don't believe in me and they really haven't encouraged me or picked me up when I'm trying to do something positive. So thank you for sharing your story and sharing how God has been able to use you in your through your life. So I love that. I love it. Now, when it comes to actually the process of writing itself, I know that some authors like to um, start their work out longhand, literally writing down what they have to say, or using some form of outline. Others are strictly computer. Some folks even use their phone. However they get it done, they need to get it done. When you were in that stage of writing, did you find that you needed to get away from the hustle and bustle of the day to kind of remove yourself to a quiet place, or did that not matter for you?
It didn't matter. I worked on the fire department in the district, and coming off of a run, I would get inspired to write. I would just take one of the forms that we would do paperwork on and write a poem and just take it home and just put it away. And as I'm talking to you now, I'm looking at Psalms 139 verses 14 through 17, how that God was telling you how we are wonderfully and marvelously made. So I believe this is my destiny. This is what I'm supposed to do. And my book is now open in heaven, and now it's going to be open on earth of what I'm to do in this earth.
Absolutely. I find that with certain careers that we have, it really helps us put life into a particular perspective. And I think that you're right. The many first responders have such an appreciation for every day that they get to walk this beautiful earth of ours, because they understand that day perhaps someone did not make it, or they barely made it, or there may even be some people that they're uncertain about because they just don't know how it will turn out for that person that they have helped, that they have responded to. So I definitely understand that perspective. Now, when it comes to determining how you are going to release your book, everyone has to decide if they are going to self-publish or if they're going to use a publishing house, or the professionals, as I like to say sometimes. How did you determine which way was going to be best for you?
Putting it all down to the line. I had these poems in my possession for years. Had no mind even thinking about the writing, getting the book published, and a publishing company called me and asked me off the bat, do you have a book that you need to write? So I knew that was my destiny. I sent them everything that I had on pieces of paper that I had written it, and they accepted it, and they went with the book. And that's where we are right now.
Oh my goodness. I love that. Oh, Miss Deborah, I love that. But I'm so glad I asked that question because, like you said, if that was supposed to be your call, that was your email, that was your call, this is what you have been purposed to do. I have a very similar story in that you just don't know when it's going to happen, but praise the Lord, it absolutely does happen. So I love it. I love it. Now, when it comes to being a successful author, I ask, what does success mean? And many times when we ask that in a general population, people tend to name tangible things, right? What does it mean to be successful? Y'all, you have a big big house, you drive a luxury car, you make X amount of money with so many zeros behind it, right? That most people will agree with that. However, when I ask authors, what does it mean to be a successful author? Their answer isn't necessarily those types of things. It's a very personal answer, I think, for each individual. So I'd like to pose that question to you. When it comes to being a successful author, what does that mean to you in your mind's eye?
Completing my destiny, or what God put inside of me to do here on this earth. To leave the world empty. When I came into the world, I had His destiny things that he wanted me to do on this earth, I want to be able to leave the world empty, deposited all that he had given me to do on this earth.
I like that. I really do. For me, it kind of goes with what I say many times, and that is that we have to pour into others, that we have been given this knowledge, this understanding, and that if we share it with another person, we're pouring into them. And if I'm understanding what you're saying, that's what you want to do. You just want to give your all. You want to share your experiences, your loves, your hopes, your joys, but also what God has given to you personally, and share that with others. I love that answer. I think I might have to start using that myself, Miss Deborah. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to leave this earth empty because I've poured all of me out. I love it. I love it. Now, when it comes to future endeavors, many people, unfortunately, have not been able to do their book signings or their book expos simply because of COVID. And we're hoping, of course, that we'll be able to do more of that in the upcoming months, but we're not sure. With that being said, what are your hopes and aspirations as the world starts to open back up and we are able to get back out there again?
Even as we speak, the publishing company is doing an auto book for me right now. I'm in process of getting that done. So not only do they have to read it, they'll be able to listen to it.
Oh, that's nice. Yes, an audible book. Yes, ma'am.
The publishing company is in process of doing that project for me even as we speak.
Oh, I love that idea, because I know that so many of us, speaking about general population, so many of us are on Audible, and we want to be able to listen to a book because we don't have the time to necessarily be able to always slow down and read a tangible book, or even if it's on our phone, to be able to read it, but we can listen and learn while we're doing whatever it is that we are doing. So I love that idea. Well, I wish and I hope and pray that comes to fruition the way in which you want it to be done, and that will definitely take off the way that this traditional version of your book has. Well, Miss Deborah Harris, thank you so much for spending time with me here today. I have enjoyed my time with you. But before I let you go, one last time, if you could please, can you remind everyone what is the title of your book? Where can we get a copy? And of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
The title of my book is Under the Shadow of God's Wings, and you can purchase this from Amazon or where books are sold, and you can stay in contact with me through my email, Leamiah, LEAMIAH, @yahoo.com.
Thank you again for being a guest here on the show.
Thank you so much.
And listeners, thank you for spending some time with us here as well. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.